Is that okay? Thank you. So welcome everybody to the Biggleswade Joint Committee. I believe the first of the municipal year. Before we start, obviously I have to do the meeting formalities. So just there is a following, this is the reminder to meeting attendees that this is a formal meeting. I can advise that members of the public will be given opportunity to speak during public open session, but not at other times. The meeting is being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. May I please ask everybody to mute microphones when not speaking? Thank you. So, I believe I have some apologies for absence. They are Councillor Patel and Councillor Watkins. Is that correct? Yep, thank you. Moving swiftly on to item 2 of the agenda here, part A. Can I ask if we have any declarations of interest on any item on the agenda? None? Raise your hands. Okay, thank you. Shall we then pause for public open session? Anyone in the chamber? Or just here? Yeah, okay. No, thank you. Right. Right, moving on to item 4, the election of the chair. This will be to elect a chair for the committee for 1 year. I will pause there in terms of voting and election. Please.
Can I propose Councillor Gareth Tranter, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Do I have any further proposal or discussion? No, at all? Okay, so we'll be comfortable with that, yeah? Great, thank you.
I think that's an invitation.
It's an invitation.
Thank you all. So we move to item 5, election of a vice chair.
Nominate Councillor Madeline Russell.
Seconder. Thank you. Any further nominations? Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Russell.
Thank you.
Item number 6, to receive and approve as a correct record the minutes of the Biggleswade Joint Committee held 19th of January 2023. Should be attached and in your pack. Page 1. Any commentary or notes? Thank you. Page 2, I should note that's item 4 through 8B on page 6 of your pack. Okay. Page 3, which shows us page 7 in your pack, just to make sure. And page 4, which is page 8 in the pack, 210B. And the final page, page 5 or 9. Okay, thank you. Comfortable that we can carry that as a record. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, matters arising for the minutes of the Biggleswade Joint Committee held on the 19th of January 2023.
Do we have any update on the Market Square trees? Because obviously 4 needed to be taken out for safety reasons, but eventually we would hope to have a plan for obviously what the Market Square would look like, but where new trees might go. So appreciate we're very early into the new council, but perhaps that's something that we can bring back to joint committee at a future meeting as and when plans do come forward, because I understand the planting season is normally around sort of autumn time. And so if we were going to be doing it this autumn, I'd expect whether it's ward councillors or BTC or this committee to be consulted kind of around about now.
Please.
Could I just say that the town council are beginning to look at this and hope to put something to central beds, which can come then forward to this committee at some stage, but it's down to the town council at the moment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
My understanding is we deferred putting the trees in at the town council's request while we decide what's happening to the future of the Market Square, which is obviously a much bigger piece of work. Whether those trees would move, that's something I think that's open for discussion. I'm just very conscious that the funding has been put aside for the tree pits and for the trees, and we wouldn't want to lose that. So there is a little bit of urgency, but we do have October to March to plant the trees. So we do have a little bit of time, but I think maybe that Market Square improvements and regeneration is something that we can maybe bring forward as part of our strategic way forward potentially.
And I think the first thing is what's on the agenda today, because with the interchange, where are the buses going? That's the thing that underpins the whole thing. So we wait to see what happens there.
Can I just clarify, Councillor Whittaker, do we know the expiry date on the funding?
We do, we're okay at the moment. It's just, it's been set aside for this particular project. So we'd hate to lose it for that.
Thank you.
In this financial year though.
Any other matters arising under item 7? Okay, thank you. And we should be on to item 8, joint committee arrangements moving forward. We are due Sarah Hughes, I believe.
Yes, good afternoon. Sorry, I am online.
Oh.
So I think in
Bear
your...
with us, Sarah, we have audio issues.
Sorry.
Could you try again, Sarah, please?
Yep. Hello. Good afternoon.
No.
No. I can hear you.
You want to try again?
Yep. Hello. Good afternoon.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so good afternoon and welcome. We've put this item on the agenda. I guess it's in particular for new members on the joint committee. So apologies for those members that are familiar with the joint committee and its purpose and its terms of reference. So I'm probably going to go over a bit of old ground. I have got a presentation. I wasn't going to share my screen because I'm pretty sure the presentation has been circulated with your agenda pack and the terms of reference. If that's not the case, I'll share my screen.
No, I've got that in the pack, Sarah, thank you.
You have, perfect. Okay, I shall just look at it myself. So yes, just by way of a bit of background and bit of introduction, there are 4 of these types of committees across central Bedfordshire. So in the other major towns, Leighton Linslade, Dunstable and Houghton Regis. They are area based, obviously, and locality focused joint committees. So CBC councillors meeting with town councillors of those towns. They are member led, and the representation is usually of equal numbers. They are a forum for members and indeed other stakeholders to discuss key issues affecting the town. And obviously the agenda is at the discretion of the chair and vice chair. But as you will see later on in your agenda, you do have a work plan, so you're able to forward plan things that you want to talk about. And in terms of Central Bedfordshire Council, the terms of reference, which is also in your pack, are referenced in the CBC Constitution under Part 3D. So the purpose, as set out in the terms of reference of the joint, and they're called, Dunstable and Biggleswade are called joint committees, Leighton Linslade and Houghton Regis are called partnership committees. They work to exactly the same terms of reference, so it was merely a choice of wording. But the purpose of all of those committees, or those 4 committees, is to influence decisions, help shape initiatives and their delivery for the benefit of the whole town, taking into account the needs of and the list of various stakeholders. And also very much to develop and encourage public participation and engagement, and take into consideration that resident voice in the work of the committee. So in terms of the value of the committee, obviously it's locality focused, so very much focused on the town. It's an opportunity to have updates from Central Bedfordshire Council and Biggleswade Town Council, and to share that information and to keep each other in touch and informed. Very much a forum for updating and discussion on really locally important key infrastructure projects, which this committee has been doing. And by way of sort of feedback, I think the knowledge and the insight that can come forward at the meetings is very helpful and can influence decisions and community leadership. And it is that hub for wider stakeholder engagement, and to have that joined up conversation. There was a review back in 2017. It took 2 years, and that was because working with four committees meeting at various times throughout the year, when there were amendments we needed to go back, etc. So it did take a fair time. The outcome of that review led to a single terms of reference. So the 4 joint committees all work to the same terms of reference. The only differences are where the number of ward councillors and town councillors differs, so the representation is proportionate to that. The review introduced the facility, which you have just exercised this afternoon, that either a CBC member or a town council member can chair, but both positions of vice chair and chair cannot be held by the same organisation. There is an opportunity in the terms of reference to co-opt other skills and interests. Can't remember the number, I think it's up to 10 other places on the committee that, you know, if you wanted particular interests or particular groups or particular organisations, you can co-opt those onto your committee. And helpfully it does, all of the joint committees produce a work plan, as I said earlier, to sort of forward plan things that you want to discuss and consider and influence. Which I have just said. So sorry, the next slide is about co-opted committee members. So it is up to 10. There is provision for up to 10 co-opted members. And as I say, it just brings those other voices, those other views and other expertise onto the committee to aid your discussions. And I think what would be really helpful if there is either today or at another meeting is really to set out what does the committee hope to achieve in the new financial year, or in this particular year, and how can you best work to help shape and influence the direction of projects within the town. So your future meetings, I'm pretty sure, are in October and then January and April. So there's approximately 4 meetings a year. So it is worth really forward planning and forward thinking as to what you want to come forward and what you want to discuss at those meetings. And that's it in terms of the presentation. Are there any questions, sorry, on the terms of reference or the role of the joint committees?
Please.
Yes, Sarah, can I just ask, you mentioned there were up to 10 co-opted members. Do the other joint committees have many co-opted members? Because obviously we don't have any at all. So.
Yes, so I don't think any have got the full quota of 10. I think Houghton Regis has 3 co-opted members. One is a business rep, 2 are from a community group. Dunstable has a number of what they call outside bodies that are on the group. So a sort of well-known Facebook group that are very active in the town. Leighton Linslade actually has a community forum attached to the joint committee, as well as other interests actually on the committee, LB First, for example, a small business grouping, etc. So yes, they do. Yeah.
Councillor Whittaker.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to be discussing this, but I think it might be. You talked about co-opted members, Councillor North, and I think that's a great opportunity for us potentially to bring in some different voices. And I was thinking business representative would be good. Community safety, potentially. I'm thinking of Julia, might be rather good to have here. And I know isn't somebody that routinely comes to your town council meetings, so might bring a different perspective as well. Maybe BRCC, but also maybe some, I'm conscious, and I don't want to be rude. We're all getting on a little bit. We're looking at you, Grant, and Isaac. But we're still, you know, we're getting a bit older. It might be quite nice to have a youth voice as well on this committee, and whether we could engage with some of our local schools to consider that. So I would be interested in opening that up. And off the back of that as well is the timing and the location of this meeting. So I would like to propose that we do consider moving it to the evenings, but also consider not always having it in this location. And I can't remember, Sarah, it was in the terms of references, it would alternate between BTC and CBC, but I don't think for a Biggleswade joint committee that's particularly helpful. But what we could do is, I like the fact that we can webcast it, because I think that's very open and transparent. Is it possible that we could do it here at the Orchard Centre, for example? Do we have the ability to webcast there, from there?
Councillor Ross.
To answer the last question first, yes, we do have the ability. I'm not sure what difference it would make, but if that's what the committee wants to do, that would be a possibility as long as the room wasn't booked. When this committee started, we did have some co-opted members, but they drifted away. We had somebody from Jordan's representing Stratton Business Park. I think he found the way local government works very, very different to the way private business works, and far too slow, and couldn't be bothered with it, to be honest. We had somebody who was involved with BRCC. He did attend quite a few meetings. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So, you know, we have tried in the past. As Councillor Whittaker has said, if you want somebody from maybe Stratton Upper School, you're not going to get them during the daytime. But I think it's a serious discussion about whether we have the meetings in the evening or in the daytime. And Sarah, what do the other committees do? Do they meet in the evening? And,
They do.
they do.
So there's not a problem with Central Bedfordshire officers attending in the evening?
It's usually me that goes to them all, so no.
Zoom. Okay, I won't say anything else at the moment.
I think this feels like an opportunity with post-May elections to rethink the way this committee operates and works. I don't know whether co-opted members would have the same voting rights as elected councillors. They don't. I didn't think they did. Perhaps we could instruct, now that we have a chairman and a vice chairman, you have control of the agenda largely, and we'll work with officers to do that, presumably with feedback from other members as well. But why don't we just bring this to October Biggleswade Joint Committee with a proposal from the chairman and the vice chairman around which community groups could be represented? And, you know, personally, I'd be keen to move to evening meetings as soon as possible. I look around the table, we've got people who work full time here. And I struggled to join BJC before, partly because of its timing, and we don't tend to get good turnouts from members of the community simply because of that. So if you're looking for a proposal, I'm happy to make one, but
to be clear for the record, which particular motion are you proposing, Councillor?
Well, I'm happy to do it in two goes. So number one, I propose that we go to evening meetings. We could take that first of all, and then perhaps a separate proposal that we have the next meeting at the Orchard Centre if we can. And then perhaps a third proposal that we instruct the chairman and vice chairman to go away, think about which community groups could be involved, and then we can decide which ones we'd like to invite and make that decision in October, ready to perhaps co-opt them in January. So that's three different proposals.
For the sake of efficiency, yes, sir.
I'd like to support all three.
Thank you, Councillor Whitaker.
Absolutely support all three, but can I just say on the last thing about inviting groups, I agree there are some groups we definitely would want represented, but I'd be quite keen to just open it up to community groups and ask them if they'd want to be present and want to be a part of this, because it's a co-option process at the end of the day. If we get 12 people want to join us and we've only got 10 spaces, we can pick and choose. I'd be quite keen to try and open it up a little bit and try and engage the community a bit more in that selection process rather than us just deciding, so doing it with them rather than to them.
I'm not very keen on the third proposal, in the sense that I don't think it would be a good idea to have a discussion at this committee about who we want to invite and who we don't. I think it's quite insulting to community groups to do that. So I think we need to find another way around of doing that.
Okay. If I remove my third proposal, then someone else can make another one. I'll keep my first two if that's all right.
Thank you, Councillor Fage. So in respect of the first two proposals, we'll come back to the third in a moment. In respect of the first two proposals, I've got a proposal and a seconder. Is anybody against? Thank you. We'll note that then. I take your point, Councillor Russell. I do think it's the wrong thing for this committee to make the decision as to who is invited, and I think that supports what Councillor Whitaker is saying. If somebody is still prepared to propose that, as chair and vice chair, we make a proposal around how that should look in time for the next meeting, I'm happy for us to consider that.
Might I suggest that, since the next meeting is until October, that the first thing to do is to put it out there on the council website and Facebook page and wherever else, that there is the possibility for groups to be co-opted and to ask people to show an interest. And then we can see where we are in October, preferably when the agenda's set, and then you and I can decide how to present it so as not to cause offence to anybody.
I'm comfortable with that as a proposal.
I think we need to think about how to make the meetings inviting to some community groups. Perhaps allowing them to bring subjects to the meeting. So, for instance, if there's a youth representative, say from Stratton School, some of the things that might get discussed here might be a little bit dry and not necessarily interesting. But if they could bring their own topics to the meeting, it perhaps be a little bit more productive.
Councillor Austin.
The other thing that's occurring to me is that the town council does have a community group already. I'm not sure that we need 2 ways for the community to input, and it might be better that community people who are interested would come to this committee rather than separately to the town council, and they've got the chance to hear from both Central Bedfordshire and the town council. So I think that's something that we need to take back to town council as well.
Okay, so I'm supportive of if we have a seconder and we have quorum on it, that we go to social media with it and ask for broad review from the community and the town itself. I think that's the right thing to do. And as you say, we can gauge the response of that. Clearly, Biggleswade Town Council are going to want to consider how they put that out and what terminology and phrasing they use. But I think it's an important question to ask. So I think I'd like to take your original proposal as that's what we want to do, and then bring that back before the next meeting.
Yes, I think that's right. And as well as putting it out on social media, then obviously we have to talk to our own community group and see, because some of the organisations that have been mentioned are on that community group. So if they would like to transfer to our committees, it would be slightly, I mean, we haven't decided on timing in the evening, but the community group usually meets, I think, at 6 o'clock, Karim. Yeah. Decide if we're going to meet in the evening, what time, as well as where.
Okay, thank you. So do we have somebody to support the motion to take that out to social media and make a broad ask? Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Anybody against? Okay, so we'll move that forward. Please.
Could I just make one point? I do think the chairman and vice chairman should at least be consulted on that wording before anything goes into the public domain, because the wording here is really important, because there do need to be a representative of the local community group, not just and somebody who we know is actually going to be engaged. So I do think double checking that wording is important before we go public.
General agreement around the room. So could we annotate that, please? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we've approved the motion to look at moving the venue and timing, but clearly we haven't decided upon a venue or time. I heard talk of the Orchard. I mean, I'm very favourable of that personally because it's right on my doorstep, but that's not a good reason to do it. So could we just have a short debate around that before we move forward, please?
Can I propose that it alternates between the town council, because this is, you know, this is a very central location. It's great for some people, and then alternates between here and the Orchard Centre, because I think, as you said, it will attract a different group of people potentially. So if we can alternate between the two, my personal preference is for a 7 o'clock start, but I'm happy to be persuaded for earlier.
Seconded.
Councillor Russell, please.
I think if we're going for 7 o'clock in the next meeting at the Orchard Centre, we better just ask staff to, well, I mean, which day of the week are we going for? Are we going for a Thursday right now? And then do we have any regular bookings at the Orchard Centre? Possibly not in the smaller room, which is the one we'd be using, but I think we just need to check that.
Okay, so I think subject to room availability, we'll move forward with that. Please.
So while we're changing the world, Sarah, is there any reason, and I've mooted this in the past, that, you know, we're trying to work more closely with the town council on a more routine basis, that we can't make this committee meeting more strategic? So rather than having updates about highways and different bits and pieces that is almost out of date, before it comes here. It always tends to be a bit retrospective rather than prospective. If we made this more of a strategic meeting where actually we could all influence stuff that's coming forward. So we've already mentioned the town centre being important and that we've all got ideas about what we might want. So the town centre, I think, is one area that we might want to discuss. Land, home farm, so the other side of the A1, what we might all have ideas about what we want to do there. I think there are potentially lots of quite big strategic things coming forward for Biggleswade that it's good to have input before decisions are made and not afterwards. So can we use that committee? Is there anything in the terms of reference? I mean, we can't use that committee for that purpose.
No, not at all. And I think it would add value, I think, if it took that direction. And I think some of the more operational things that have been coming to the committee, there are other mechanisms already perhaps in place where Town Council will discuss directly with CBC and vice versa. So I think that sounds like a good way forward.
Thank you. Can I then propose that the committee moves forward with a more strategic approach to the agenda, maybe focusing on one topic, and that might actually help with our co-optees because we might be able to bring them in for just specific topics. So yeah, I'd like to propose that we take it forward with a more strategic approach for the joint committee.
Can I second that?
You can. Councillor Russell? No. Any objections to that? And then we'll carry that as well. Sarah, I do have one question for you, and it is a moment of pedantry really, but looking at the terms of reference final version as published in this pack 13th to 7th 23, co-option lists a maximum of 15 members, not 10,
okay.
Which is contrary to slideware. So can we just clarify which that is for the sake of the record, please?
So the terms of reference is correct, and my slide was incorrect, for which I do apologise.
No worries, thank you. So if we can just remember that covers 15. Councillor Russell?
Just to say that we've done today what we've been doing for years, because I've been a member of this joint committee since it was formed, and that is that the chairman came from Central Bedfordshire and the vice chairman from the town council. I was quite surprised when I saw the terms of reference. I hadn't picked that up before, that it could actually be the other way around. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with what we've done today, but I'm just noting that that is a change from when the committee was set up. In the same way that it's a change that we elect for a year rather than for the 4-year term, which I think is better to elect for the year. But just pointing out that that is quite a big change, and there's never been a town council chairman of the joint committee.
Thank you. And Sarah, unless there's any other questions on those initial elements under part 8A for Sarah?
No, thank you. No.
So we move on to 8B, confirming secretariat arrangements for 23-24.
So Kareem, don't look at me, I'm looking at you. So the current arrangements are that the town council is the secretariat or the clerk, and as per the terms of reference, you need to renew that or agree that annually. So my fingers are crossed that Kareem and colleagues are happy to continue to secretariat the committee.
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. I think we'll be happy to continue and provide all the support that's required.
Thank you.
With a few alterations, maybe.
Thank you, Kareem. Councillor Russell.
I'm concerned that this is up for grabs annually, if I can put it like that, because I think there needs to be some continuity. And I would hope that we could decide that the town council is the secretariat for this 4-year term, because it gives that continuity and stability to the committee.
Commentary, Councillor Whittaker.
I would normally agree with you. However, because we're introducing lots of changes in terms of location, timings, and everything like that, I would actually say for this first year, if we could just keep it for a year, and then if at the end of this year, everybody, including the town council, are happy with the arrangements, we then confirm for the next 3. I'm just conscious we have a lot of change.
I'm okay with that.
except it's not a change because that's what we've done for a long time. So what's the point? Yeah, never mind. It's just contradictory.
So I think, Kareem, you've managed to talk yourself into that one, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Chair, may I also say I am very sorry. I do have to leave the meeting. I have to be in Houghton Regis in approximately 45 minutes, so I'm going to have to hair down the road. But I have left 2 colleagues here, Lauren and Charlotte, who will deliver some of your items later on in the agenda. They will also feed back to me anything else that around the sort of operation of the committee that you have, and I can follow those things up outside of the meeting. But I really do apologise.
That's fine. Thank you, Sarah. I think we've probably covered off your relevance on the agenda anyway. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, unless there's any objections, we will move swiftly through Part B, Economy and Town Centre updates, as there are non-listed on the agenda for this meeting, to Part C, Item 10, Local Infrastructure and Updates, where we should be joined, I believe, by Nick Shaw. Noted. So we had a late apology from Nick Shaw on the transport interchange project. Okay. Sorry, please.
Well, I was just going to say, we've got the written report, haven't we, on the interchange? I just had the question, when do we expect to see it actually? Does anybody know when we expect to see it actually operating with buses in and out, etc.?
Councillor Whittaker.
So the plan is that we are still testing. So CBC are still testing the interchange as it stands. So there's always going to be tweaks and changes. Things like curbs might be a bit too high, might have to have a slightly different profile for the buses to be able to get around, that sort of thing. So we're currently in the testing phase at the moment, is my understanding. That will go on for a little while longer, and then it will be a soft launch over the summer, is my understanding. So I think it will be a little while yet, because it's getting both of the bus companies to come in with all of their different kinds of buses and test the interchange, and then make the changes, and then we can consider where we, actually bringing buses up here on a more regular basis. So although it looks finished, there are still tweaks going on.
All right. Okay. So it's a while yet then.
Please.
Yeah, on that. So it was mentioned earlier about the bus routes through the market square. So is there any movement on engaging the bus companies with consulting them about routes, whether the market square is still on the route, whereas the transport interchange is, when it's operational then?
My understanding is the market square will always remain on the route. No one's got no one has any ideas, I think, to move buses out of the town centre completely. I think the idea is just that they will, in addition, come up to the interchange. So I just want to make sure that I sort of quell those concerns. It's obviously about where they stand over more than where they visit. So they will continue to visit the town centre, is my understanding. In terms of engaging with the bus companies, the last thing I heard was we were having those conversations and starting those conversations about when timetables will change, or that sort of thing. Ultimately, we can give the bus companies an idea of where we are, and we can say, we're doing this testing and snagging over the summer, and once that's done, you'll be in a position to to put this on your timetable. But ultimately, it's for the bus companies to modify their timetables. But I know the conversations have started and are ongoing with the bus companies. I think until the snagging's done, that's not going to happen then.
Councillor Russell.
I think adding to that, the issue is, yes, certainly the buses shouldn't stand on the market square. We have the 2 bays outside Asda, which have now, people have been stopped parking there, and they were originally designed as bus bays. So we've got those 2 as well as the transport interchange. The issue is that if the buses are still going to use the west side of Century House, where do they exit on market days? And how does that affect the layout of the market? We certainly need the bus exit lane closed. So it's what happens there because the other thing that we discussed as a town council and did put forward some proposals to highways people in central Bedfordshire was whether bus stops could be in the high street as opposed to actually on the market square, and whether that would help on market days, both Tuesdays and Saturdays. So there's quite a lot to discuss there. And obviously it's not just Central Beds Highways, it's the bus people and it's the bus companies themselves, but there's a lot there. And yes, we're adamant that there should be bus stops on the market square, and certainly a lot of the older people in the town were very nervous when they heard about the transport interchange, so we need to make sure they're reassured. But there's a lot to discuss, and this seems to be a very slow process, let's just put it like that.
Please.
I agree with you, it is a slow process. However, I'm conscious that we're all having a meeting about the annual plan. CBC members have a meeting about the annual plan shortly, which has been delayed this year. As you know, it would normally be published in May. It has been delayed this year. I am aware that there is money set aside to do the feasibility for the work that you're talking about in the town centre around buses. I'm just conscious that we could have lots of discussion and then they do that piece of work and then we have to have another discussion because everything changes, because what's possible in terms of structural integrity of the road and pavements and all that sort of thing. So I'm just a little bit cautious. I think if it's all right with you, if we can see what the annual plan says about what quarter that work will be done in, and then we can have a conversation about whether we need to bring other stuff forward before or after. I don't want to preempt what might be said in the annual plan, but also what might be shown by that work that's been scheduled.
Well, coming back on that, the last I heard was that it would be the autumn when that sort of thing was discussed. And if we're going to be more strategic, is that something that we could discuss at our meeting in October? So at least there's input from this joint committee fairly early on in the process.
Thank you. I'm in agreement that with further feasibility studies going ahead, it's the right sort of topic for what we have agreed we want to be doing with this joint committee. And in lieu of updates from Nick, I think we've potentially exhausted that conversation, but I will open it up one more time for any further commentary. Please.
I come in on something totally different with the transport interchange. I'm aware that there's a whole forest of poles, whether they're lamp standards or signs or whatever, and our piece of artwork, which is rather close to the Network Rail sign. It does detract from it. But the one thing that we haven't talked about, I've never talked to Nick Shaw about it, so this is sort of coming late to the table. But somebody said to me a while back that you come out of Biggleswade station and you don't know where you're going to the town centre. So is it possible even at this late stage to think about putting some signage that says town centre this way, so that people know where they're going, and to take them sort of down Station Road and into the market square? I don't know whether we can add that to the agenda for Nick and the others to do, but I think that would be useful.
I think as CBC members we can feed that back, or as a committee we can feed that back to Nick. I think that'd be a great idea. I've had conversations pretty similar to that, saying if you know Biggleswade and you get off the bus, depending on where you want to go to the town centre, you'd probably go down Palace Street, you wouldn't go down Station Road. And you're right, when you get off the bus, how do you know which is the route to go? And that we need to really improve not just the signage but also that entryway into Biggleswade and make it look more inviting. So I think it's part of a bigger piece of work, but I think the signage is a great place to start.
Can we rely on you to take that back to Nick, Councillor? Thank you. Fab. We will move on then. Item 10B, play areas project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the largest project that we have at the moment, which is Franklin's Recreation Ground, the main project has now completed there to reasonably good effect. That's coming from some public feedback that we're getting. there's a further small project, which is an extension project in my terminology, which is to the riverbank side of the Ivel. It's a small triangular piece of land, and that project will be completed by the 3rd week of August. As we're awaiting delivery of parts, so subject to logistics, that should be done. And I can say that obviously the town council has been deliberating, discussing for several weeks, indeed months, future locations for our play areas, and we're making good progress in terms of understanding which ones. It looks like it's that we resolved recently, the town council resolved that it would be Kitelands next. So a project is being already formed on that. I'll pause there.
Any commentary? Councillor Page.
Thank you. Yes, it was been a long time coming getting Franklin's ready, but I think it looks really good now. Obviously, there's a question over securing. I know trouble at Franklin's far predates most of us as councillors, actually, when the days of the small splash play area was there and there was broken glass in it, for etc. So we need to obviously think about how that investment is secured from a safety point of view. And I know the town council's taken steps on that. Just one thing I would urge is to make sure that we try to seek out section 106 where possible, if it is available, for these play area improvements, because the PWL, the Public Works Loan Board loan, is the only option that was really available at the time. But as and when more section 106 becomes available potentially, we should absolutely seek that out as primary source if it's made available for play areas.
Thank you. Any other commentary? Would the committee allow me to ramble ever so briefly regarding play areas in King's Reach? Because whilst they're not strictly under the control of the town council at the moment, I thought it worth providing a short update that I have spoken with Alan Isaac of Isaac Mercer and his assistant director in the last 3 weeks, and they are undertaking a full review of all play area equipment and safety up on King's Reach. I enforced the closure of some play area equipment on Taverner Drive just yesterday due to it being dangerous. So they are doing a full review, and we're awaiting output from a report and remediation relating to play areas on King's Reach.
I don't know whether you want to say something, Karim, but we are in negotiations as a town council. We would like to take those play areas over, but there's no way we're going to take them over in the condition that they're in. And Central Beds officers are involved in the negotiation that's going on. So hopefully, in due course, we'll have some really good play areas on King's Reach to add to the town's facilities.
Please.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, yes, good news, all good news about this major review being undertaken by the gentleman and the colleague in question. We have a rolling programme of establishing a meeting to meet with them to share data on specific areas, quite a few of them indeed. Once we've received that data, we can then digest it essentially and work out exactly what will happen with land transfers and S106 funding. We're confident that that meeting will happen in August now.
Great news, thank you. Any other commentary on play areas? Okay, we'll move on to item 10C, the Drove Road Chapel project.
Thank you, Chairman. So phase 1 of the 3-part project was completed in March. This consisted of high-level repointing works, stone repairs, roof repairs, and works to the ventilators on the central tower. Council recently agreed for phase 2 to commence as soon as possible. And after having a meeting with the external project manager yesterday, they confirmed that this work is likely to start at the beginning of August. There'll be no scaffolding this time, as it's all low-level external and interior work, including some repointing, a lot of window repairs, and a French drain system being installed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Open to the floor.
I'm conscious that the chapel's quite damp. Are all these works going to address that, or is it just a fundamental issue with the chapel?
That's what the French drains are for. They're not normal drains. It's a separate way of doing it, and it's often used on church buildings where there isn't a damp proof course.
Thank you, Isaac. Anybody else? Thank you. That brings us to part 11, part D, community engagement updates. We have item A, app bike, Biggleswade's new cycle hire scheme.
Hi, yes, hello everyone. I'm Charlotte, I'm one of the Sustainable Transport Officers from CBC. And Sarah asked if I could just do a quick run through with you of what we've recently been introducing in Biggleswade. Many of you will be aware of the bikes around the area. So firstly, thank you all for your participation in helping get this up and running. It's taken a little while, but we got there in the end. So it's a project between CBC and BRCC. So we've part funded it. On our side, it's through developer contributions, and BRCC are funding the other half. So it's a 12-month pilot scheme across Biggleswade. We wanted to try and cover the whole of Biggleswade so that all residents had the opportunity. We were only able to have 12 bikes initially. So the areas that we've chosen to try and cover everybody is Dan Alban Car Park, the rail station, Saxon Pool and Leisure Centre, Kingsreach Shops and Grassmere Road. So the bikes went in on Friday. Hopefully so far, haven't heard anything. I hope that they're successful because we haven't heard anything against that. So the idea is you'll go along, you'll scan the app. It's a charge of £1.50 an hour. Or you can take membership of £5 a month. You get 2 hours free per day, and then it's £1 per hour thereafter. Sorry, 2 hours free per day, £1 thereafter on the membership side of things. BRCC are also doing some social prescribing through this, so that's separate on their side of things. Hopefully we'll know how they're going with that in the next few weeks. So the idea is that people can use them for commuting or leisure purposes. Most of them are on the green wheel, so they can be used for that purpose as well. And we are in close contact with App Bikes who have provided them for us, and they will be giving us monitoring reports. We're going to meet with them monthly, and we can get monitoring reports in between that time as well to see how we're going with it. We've done a press release for it, and we've advertised on social media. So hopefully once people get to know about it, it will become popular. But we can update you as and when. So that's about everything. If anyone wanted to ask any questions.
Thank you, Charlotte. Questions, please.
Yes, I mean, I know they've only been going a couple of weeks or so, but do you have any information about their usage so far?
They were only installed on Friday, just gone. So we don't know anything as yet. The officers, we're keeping an eye on them. I've noticed a few have moved around, so hopefully people have used them. But yeah, I think probably next week we'll follow up with App Bikes and see how we're going with that. It's probably a bit soon to be asking them. They've only just been running a week, but I think by next week people will have heard about them. The ones that I walk past, that people are looking and stopping and reading, so people are quite interested, I think, and there's been some good feedback on social media, so we're hoping that it's a positive scheme.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? I am going to extend a bit of creative license again, because I do have a question for you, Charlotte, please, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I attempted with my family to hire one of these bikes at the weekend because I was quite excited. I don't own a bike. So I opted for a pay-as-you-go account when I scanned the bike. And within a few minutes, I received an email from a Gmail account asking me to send proof of address by email.
Yeah.
must confess I do work in data security and data privacy, and that concerned me a little. So I just wanted to raise that with you and understand a little bit more about how we're approaching that and whether we think that may affect usage or not, please.
Yeah, we did speak to Simon at Bike about this, and he said that that's the way at the moment, that they're having to ask people for their proof of address, just to send it through, but they are looking at a different way. So I will follow that up with him. I think there was something in the pipeline, so I will ask him how he's going with that. I think it will be, I mean, they need the address scanned, so I don't know how they'll go about that rather than using an email, whether you can do that through the app, but I will double check.
Thank you. Any other questions on the bikes? No? Thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And item 11, part B, Play Streets from the sustainability team.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me. So my name's Lauren Chimes. I'm the new Active Streets Engagement Officer at Central Beds Council, and my role is funded by Public Health England to look at getting children more active. I've got a short presentation for you, so I'm just going to share my screen so I can just run through a quick PowerPoint with you all. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, fantastic. Okie doke. So, Play Streets. The pros of children being active are it builds their self-confidence, reduces anxiety, improves self-esteem, improves social skills, tackles childhood obesity, and creates a positive attitude. And a positive attitude towards physical activity has also been associated with children being happier. The pros of a play street. A play street creates a safe space for children to play freely. It's close to home, so there's no cars or extra travel needed. It's low pressure. It's a low pressure way to learn new skills outside of an organised group or PE lessons. The smooth tarmac is perfect for children to learn how to ride a bike, roller skate, scoot or skateboard. It helps build natural bonds and friendships with like-minded children of a similar age, and it enables parents to re-engage with neighbours post-COVID. So the playing out movement began in 2009. Two parents in Bristol wanted their kids to play out a bit safer, so decided to start this whole movement. And there's now over 1,500 play streets that take place across England throughout the year, with 90 councils being involved. So naturally, Central Bedfordshire Council wanted to get involved and launch their own play streets. So far, we've actually had 2 trials. We've done one in Dunstable along Morecambe Road and one in Ampthill in Elderway, and both were really well received. Dunstable, we had 25 children playing out, and in Ampthill, we had 30, which just proves that the kids absolutely want to be playing out. So what we would do as a council, we would provide the playing out packs, which you can see on the screen here. We do encourage the children to play with their own equipment, so their own bikes. We don't want to be bringing anything along that is kind of out of reach of what their parents could afford or anything like that. So it's all about them using their own stuff, using their own imagination. And I have to say, the chalks have been the most popular thing the children have wanted to play with. Just chalking on the road has been such a huge hit. We applied for the road closure on behalf of the streets. There's absolutely no cost involved to the people running it. I've got a couple of facts for you. So 82% of adults played out compared to the 12% of children today. 3/4 of UK children spend less time outside than prison inmates. Only 47% of children are getting the minimum 1 hour's activity a day, and this is including their walk to school. 1/3 of children are now living with obesity by year 6 in the most disadvantaged areas. Children in England are among the most unhappiest in the world. Thousands of children under 10 are treated for mental health problems. And the UN Article 31 states the right for children to engage in play. So what I'm looking at doing is starting play streets in Biggleswade, looking at, sorry, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. How do I do that on Zoom? Oh, stop sharing, there we go. Sorry. Yes, it's looking at introducing this into Biggleswade. We're looking at quieter roads, closes on housing estates. We're not looking at major roads that's going to cause any trouble to anybody. Roads that are closed, the residents still can come and go. They absolutely still have access to their properties. It's just all about stopping delivery drivers and through traffic and things like that. But where possible, we always look to do a road that's got a dead end. So we're only really needing to facilitate one road closure throughout the road. But it is resident led. So whereas we would take care of the admin and providing the kits, it is the parents themselves and the residents who will need to man the road closures and be there for the children, because they are ultimately still responsible for their children and any actions that the children take place. But in short, that's Play Streets. So if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lauren. Councillor Russell.
I'm sorry to have to say that the town council discussed this a couple of months ago and was strongly against the concept and don't really want to see it in Biggleswade. So I don't know whether Central Beds can take it forward in other ways, but it won't be with the support of the town council unless the council changes its mind, and it can't discuss it again for 6 months. But there was a feeling that it was not a good idea to encourage children to play in streets. It's only 2 hours a month. So, but will young children realise that? There was an issue there. And quite frankly, we've got an awful lot of play areas in Biggleswade where people could take their children to play, because it requires parents or other people to be supervising the children on a voluntary basis. That could happen anyway. So I'm afraid that the town council is not in support of this at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm quite shocked that the town council isn't in support. If those stats at the end don't make you want to have every street as a play street, I don't know what would. Yeah, quite shocking actually, those facts. So thank you, Lauren, for that. I am supportive of this, and I take all the concerns of the town council on board, but I do feel that 2 hours actually might encourage more outside play and not necessarily in that street. But I think it's a good thing to encourage it. And if this is kind of almost a pilot and seeing how we get on, I mean, I'm keen to see if we can help support that from a CBC ward member perspective at least. One question I do have for you is, in terms of unadopted roads, is it possible to do this on unadopted roads? Because I'm conscious that some of our particularly high density areas for young children are places like Kingsreach and some of our newer estates. So is it possible?
Yeah, the one we actually did in Elder Way is an unadopted road. So that still is possible, and the highways granted the road closure. So there was absolutely no problems with that.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the decision of the town council was not unanimous. I was in support of this scheme. I think it's less than 6 months ago. I'm pretty sure it is, but we do have a new council now, so I'm sure it's possible to bring it back and, if necessary, rescind the decision if the council was wishing to support it. So I would love to see this scheme in place.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else on this one? Any other commentary? No? Lauren, thank you for joining us. Really good to see. Thank you. And that brings us to the penultimate item, item 12, items requesting attention by Central Bedfordshire Council. There was none received and no prior documentation, so unless there's any last minute bits, I'm going to skip right through that and move to item 13, where we agree the date of our next meeting is indeed 12th of October 2023, subject to room access at the Orchard for 7 PM, I believe was where we got to. And with that, it is, what is it, 15:34. I will close the meeting there. Thank you all.
In this chamber, it is mandatory to slam the gavel down at the end of the meeting.